we're on the road, I just want some Mexican food.
You always want Mexican food. What do you mean when we're on the road?
Well, okay, when we're on the road or at home.
I was going to say, if the day ends in Y, he wants Mexican food.
Yeah. Well, we are on the road. We're not recording on the back porch. We are recording at the lovely, beautiful Farm and the Frenchman winery cottages. What would you call these?
Cabin? Modern cabin? I don't know. This is my kind of camping. I'll put it that way.
Okay. We're definitely not camping. Yeah, this is down in, I think technically it's Robards, Kentucky. And they've got a nice grape and soybean farm out here. And they make their own wines. They make wines we learned last night from all over the West Coast. They get grapes brought in and blend their wines here on site.
I think the blackberry wine that you finished yesterday was, the blackberries were from Oregon or Washington. Can't remember which one.
Yeah. Well, wherever they were, it was delicious. And that's actually not what we're talking about today, but that's a little teaser for our next episode where we'll interview the farmer and the Frenchman.
Yeah. Super inspired from being here, so I'm really excited to talk to them.
Yeah. It's always that's partly why we're here, is to have a little sort of mini retreat. And, there's that sense of, if you need to make some decisions on the business, it's difficult to do that while you're very much, neck deep in the business.
Yeah, and disclaimer, it didn't all go perfectly.
Oh, you mean our hike yesterday?
Our little adventure. Zach rushed me out the door, and I forgot my hairbrush. And then
the dog needed to pee. I said, "Don't worry, babe. I'll take the dog to pee. You finish up whatever you need to finish up." And that was rushing.
So yeah, I forgot my hairbrush. I also forgot our AeroPress so we could have good coffee. So we drank Keurigs this morning, and it was rough. So yeah, and then we went on a hike, and I made a comment how we haven't.
Oh yeah.
I can't believe that this happened, but I said, we haven't got a tick all year with all this hiking that we've done. And we got in the car, and Zach is pointing to a tiny little dot on his leg.
Look, I got a new freckle, and it's moving.
I know. He's like, what are these little bugs? And I'm like, I'm sure it's just a chigger, whatever that is. And he pulls it off, and we realize that we have what seems to be like 100 small ticks on our legs.
No, my wife is prone to hyperbole and exaggeration. However,
she is
not exaggerating actually this time. There were actually hundreds of moving, almost microscopic creatures on both of our legs. We did some Googling in the midst of scratching and trying to frantically get these things off of us.
While you're driving.
Yeah. We're in the car. We've got to get places. That was... Well, anyway, our Googling let us know that, a hot shower, soap and
apparently
water.
they're called seed ticks.
So go ahead and do your own Googling right now.
If you hear an itching noise, we do have small bites all over our legs. So.
All right. But so, that wasn't the total goal of our little retreat here. Really, it's sort of the culmination of a decision that we knew that we were going to have to make when this year started. So we knew that our plans for expansion needed to stop. We had opened up a new location in 23, another bigger location in 24. Oh, sorry, I got those numbers wrong. 20,
I was like, no.
22 and 23, and then in 2024 we were going to stop and just kind of take a break. But one thing that was on the horizon as a little bit of a ticking time bomb, or at least something that needed to be addressed, was our Burkhardt location's lease.
Yes.
So we entered into that lease in September of 2019.
Yes, right before COVID.
Yeah. I wonder how you think COVID was already out and they just didn't have a name for it quite yet, and then it was November when they named it.
I don't know.
Who cares?
Yeah, I try not to think about those days.
Well, we signed a 5-year lease. Figured that would be a good term to start. We got a good lease from our landlord and got rolling there.
I want to back up a little further.
Okay.
I had a lot of reservations about this location working because so many places had gone out of business like prior to us coming in there.
That's right. It was, I mean, people would like literally say, "Oh no, don't go there. That place is cursed."
Yes. And I think when we first opened, it seemed like a lot of people had trouble finding it. It was like Google wasn't quite leading them to the right place. They would come in, they would already be frustrated when they got there, which is just not a great customer journey. And so it's been a real shock that this location has ended up being our busiest location to me.
Well, yeah, and because it wasn't something that you had chosen for yourself, so I like that you wanted to go back because now I'm remembering. So we had taken on our first partner into the business, and shout out to Caroline Fardig. She was a customer of ours, and right before our 3rd anniversary of being in business, reached out about opening up her own coffee shop location, and after sort of realizing what her vision for what it might be was and how she would sort of operate within there, it made sense for her to join us as a full partner in the company. But then with that, she had a lot of input, rightly so, about the where and the how of getting that location off the ground.
Yeah, so that was one that we did not gut. So both of our last 2 locations have been a complete gut where we got to do all the decor that we wanted and make it the way that we wanted it. I just remember when we opened this location that we didn't have a lot of money, and we were also nervous about the location and kind of investing too much into it. There had been a coffee shop there before, and they had actually just renovated everything. So we ended up kind of keeping some things that maybe aren't my favorites, like the countertops and the cabinets. And
these are aesthetics. This is the
this
form.
Is all aesthetic.
Yeah, the form versus function.
Yeah. So I think there's always been a part of me that wants to tackle, if we were going to stay there, wants to tackle a bigger renovation project.
And again, mostly for how it looks.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, one thing that was different and unique was this location had a drive-through. And initially, I think in our original thoughts, we were not really trying to compete with like a Starbucks or something like that had a drive-through. And we would at least say, oh, yeah, that's not who we're trying to compete with. But this location had a drive-through, and so that increased some of the functionality of that space. And it ended up actually being a saving grace during COVID.
Yeah, it really was. I would say it still has never been our vision to own like a fast service, here's your coffee, see you later kind of business.
Yeah, Scooters as kind of established themselves as that in the market.
Yeah, but I feel like we landed somewhere in the middle, and it's been really good.
At Burkhardt.
Yeah. So it's our only location with a drive-through, but we're not the very fastest, but I feel like the quality is there. We're not rushing people through. We're still like trying to have that connection with them in the drive.
Well, and we had to make some decisions about that to where we first had our full menu on the drive-through board and then realized that food was kind of slowing things up. And so then we ended up taking all of the food, or at least most of the food, off of all the food that would take more than...
I don't think we ever put all of the food on there.
It was never on there?
It was never on there, but people
were ordering it anyway?
They still do.
Okay. Well, but just figuring that part out, just sort of the learning, like, okay.
The burrito was a saving grace for us. When we developed the burrito and we were able to kind of cook those in the oven and then just reheat, that is a big time saver. And so it's really gone well in the drive. Like, people love it because it's made in-house. Like, we're using real eggs, we're using sausage, we're cooking it up ourselves. We're not just buying some prepackaged thing.
You know what I totally forgot until just now? We actually gave this location a new name. We called it the Honeymoon Kitchen on Burkhardt. Do you remember this?
Oh gosh, yeah.
So I had forgotten.
I don't have fond memories of that.
You blocked it out. Yeah, so because it did have other food-based tenants in there, it had a more fleshed out kitchen. Didn't have a fryer, but we added a couple ovens.
We tried to do biscuits.
Yeah, well, Caroline had all these great recipes, and we tested them, and we really liked it. We did biscuits. We did
Quinoa.
gosh.
We had like a quinoa bowl.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, that was really good. It died with COVID.
There was, what was the bacon jam?
Oh, the bacon jam was really good.
Bacon jam was incredible.
Caroline also came up with the lemon fluff, and that ended up staying, and
Yeah.
it's really great.
It ended up being something we were trying to sort of, because it was different, use the functionality that it had there. However, some of the things that people really liked and enjoyed, they would then, go to our Weinbach location and say, hey, can I get those biscuits and gravy?
Yeah.
Which was a joke from when we very first opened up, because the coffee shop that had failed before we opened our Weinbach location was famous for having biscuits and gravy.
Yes.
So the confusion there started to be a little bit of a hassle, and then
What did we learn?
well, as COVID just changed things, we realized that it reopened in waves to where takeout only, low contact or no contact customer options were the only options for a while. You couldn't go in and sit down in a restaurant. Are we going to be telling this to our grandkids someday? You couldn't even sit down in a restaurant, Sonny.
I hope this is the only super life-changing event that happens while we're alive.
Yeah. And be like, what's a restaurant? Pass me the Soylent.
Yeah.
Anyway, the drive-through ended up being the first thing of either of those locations that we opened back up, which got our employees working, which they were really excited to work about. And so I have some fond memories of the sort of trauma bonding, I guess, of masking and wiping down. We had to pay for a company to come in and fog the whole place because
someone got COVID. Yeah.
Oh, good times.
Yeah.
Well, and by the end of 2020, I think Caroline had realized it wasn't quite living up to the vision that she had
working very hard, me and Caroline.
Yeah.
We were, every time someone would get sick, we were covering shifts. So it was very difficult.
Yeah, but she's a hard-working person. It wasn't anything about working hard. I think it had to do with the fact it just wasn't quite the vision that she had because of some of those challenges from COVID.
Yeah.
And she's actually a very talented author, and she ended up doubling down on her writing career and has since published several more books. So go check out her books if you haven't yet.
Yeah, it is wild to me though that we've been there for 5 years, because it feels like we've been there for 10.
Does it really?
Yeah. The 5 years, so much happened during those 5 years that to me it just feels like 10.
Well,
we
it's
took
about
a
to be.
partner on, the partner left, we went through COVID. Yeah. So
well, and then so back to the story of 2024, knowing that we have a decision to make and knowing that we didn't want to expand, and also remembering some, I guess for you, is a lot of bad memories, or at least things that you would have done differently. And since then, since signing those leases, we've now made 2 building purchases. So we've become building and real estate owners, and that model is a lot more attractive to us and allows us to feel comfortable about making capital expenditures and improvements to the site, which feels a little different.
It also feels like you have more control when you own the building. So just a little backstory for this shopping complex we're in. Since we opened in 2019, there's now a smoke shop next door, and nothing against tattoos. We both have them, but there's getting ready to be a tattoo shop next to that.
And a smoothie shop.
And they also have a smoothie acai shop that opened in the same complex. So some direct competition to some things that we already do. And that's why for me, owning something is really attractive.
Yeah, you've got some more control over, what happens,
Right.
especially
It's
not
like you're
sharing.
paying yourself rent. Like there's a lot of advantages there. And then if we did ever decide to sell Honeymoon, which we haven't talked about it, it's something that we would continue to be able to have an asset in the building.
Wow, you're going all sorts of different directions with this. I was just talking about the fact that we were looking at maybe purchasing property in the Burkhardt area. Like basically, instead of expanding into a fifth Honeymoon location, that we would move the Burkhardt location somewhere in or around the Burkhardt area.
Yeah, I saw a piece of property and I had like a full body yes. And then it was interesting how every time I tried to pursue it, it just did not line up.
Yeah.
It was like roadblock after roadblock after roadblock.
And we've trusted your kind of full body yes. Like when you feel really strongly about something, it's typically paid off and been the right long-term decision. And then, then experiencing some of those roadblocks was unsettling a little bit.
Yeah, and then alongside of that, like parallel to that, I was walking into Burkhardt and literally it was like a networking. I knew every person, the customers knew each other, people were walking up to us, thanking us for opening this location. And so it felt like I needed to stop and kind of realize that even though it's not perfect, it's still us and it's good and it's a space that we've created that people enjoy using.
And it does have its own personality. And now having 4 different locations, that's something that even though the menu is mostly the same everywhere, the decor is different, but the layout of the space, the way that the team interacts with each other and supports each other, the Berkeys, the Burke babes, the Burkhardt folks really do love and take care of each other in a special way and support each other and understand the chaos of the drive-through, going off again and again and again,
beep,
beep. Or having to, bring out, 5 or 6 different, waffles to somebody all the way on the patio. Just different struggles that they've had.
That could be another podcast where we talk about our decision to bring things out to people's tables.
Yeah, that would be interesting. But I guess maybe to bring it closer to the decision-making point, when did you sort of realize that maybe it'd be worth it to revisit releasing and renewing our vows, if you will? Our vow to Burkhardt.
Okay.
Not our vow to each other. You don't have to.
Like, okay.
You don't have to renew your vow to me.
I didn't know if you were surprising me. Yeah, I think it became easier as I looked at our options. So it's a very up and coming area where we are on Burkhardt. They just built kind of some new shopping centers and apartments across the street. So we did kick the tires of like looking at some spaces across the street that were more modern looking, and
these would be lease situations as well.
Yeah. So we looked at both leasing and buying, and it just didn't make sense. I don't want the pressure of having to sell 400, 500 cups of coffee just to make rent, and I think at the end of the day we both ended up feeling like if it's not broke, don't fix it kind of mentality.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, as you would walk in and there'd just be so many good things going on, it was just like, why don't we just continue this? It's not just if it ain't broke, like it's good.
It's good, like, and let's make it better.
Yeah, it's a good thing. Yeah. And so if there are some aesthetic things that you would like to change or some...
And there are.
And some functional things that I would like to change.
You had a great idea about... So one of our challenges there is the layout didn't quite allow for a second espresso machine to be added for the drive specifically. So we have to use one machine for both
In-person customers.
In-person customers and the drive. So there are a few times during the week that gets really kind of backed up. And so you had the idea to add a 3 group head espresso machine where our 2 group head is, and then move our 2 group head over to Weinbach, and then we'll have an extra one.
Do you think folks know what a group head is?
It's where the espresso shot comes out of the machine.
Yeah. So espresso machine basically has group heads, steam wands, and a water dispenser.
Yeah, and especially with ice drinks, adding a 3rd one allows you to kind of make 3 drinks at one time instead of just 2.
So we decided instead of spending money on a machine, on a new building, that we would spend money on a machine and some
renovations.
Some aesthetic things, and renew our vows and go all in with Burkhardt for another 5 years.
Let's do it.
Yeah. All right. Well, if you ever have any questions about, why we made a certain decision as a recommendation for a podcast topic, please send them our way. You can go to our website, honeymooncoffeeco.com/podcast, I think. I don't know. It's 2024. You can figure out how to get to our podcast page. But next month, we will be back with an interview with the fine folks from The Farmer and the Frenchman. That's a lot of Fs.
It is a lot of Fs.
The fine folks from
the... What the F?
What? Cheers.
Well, that's it. Thank you for listening to the show this week. The Honeymoon Coffee Company podcast is produced in partnership with the Nectar Podcast Network, with music by Sam Cuban and podcast production by me, Wesley Luttrell. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll be back again soon.